Okay, welcome to this lecture. This lecture is going to be one of the most important lectures that you're going to see over here, creating procedural systems. Since this is a lecture explaining you on how you should approach a certain subject, to think about it and to make a plan to create a procedural system. So, as you might already know, is that the goal of both of the blocks is that in the first block you're going to create a preparation document in which you're going to explain and in which you're going to do a lot of research in a subject that you're interested into creating a procedure of. Now, this is like all the preparation work that needs to be done before you start even creating your whole system, and this will also help you to set this up in an orderly fashion and in a manageable way, so that you won't run into problems later on when the procedure is getting more and more complex. So doing this preparation work will allow you later on to do a top-down approach of your whole system, and this is key in order to continue in a fast and efficient way creating your procedural system. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to focus on is the deductive reasoning when creating procedural models. So what is deductive reasoning? It's finding links and finding reasons why shapes are relating to each other. So first of all, what this requires is like a serious analysis of the subject that you're dealing with. So okay, something which is very important and that I've been talking about before is that creating a procedural system is very useful if you want to create believable objects en masse, like we can see over here on this image, or if you want to create a system in which you can allow a user other than yourself to have control over the end result using a very high level interface. So both of these systems are quite valid. So it's gonna help you to see and look for the patterns that are needed in order to create like this wider and more complex structures. So the analysis of subjects. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do very proper research about the subject. So even if you think that you know all about it, it's most probably so that you're going to find that there's much more to learn about any kind of topic that you're going to deal with. Like I said, it's very important then to design from all that research that you can create a maintainable structure, something which allows you to set a procedure up into easy to use elements and components, and this will also result in the end into reusable assets. So setting it up like this will allow you to easily get like separate elements that you can reuse later on. So the thing that we're going to focus on as an example is a manned jet fighter. So we have like all kinds of shapes. You have like big fighter planes or bombers. You have very fast ones, you have slow ones, you have tank killer planes. They all have their own specific goals and their own specific designs for that, and because of all kinds of reasons they have like different kinds of shapes and topology. So first thing that you need to do, and which is a very important part, is you need to do your proper research. This means, in case of airplanes, try to find almost every plane that has ever been created, so that you can really look at all the different variations, all the designs, also prototypes of future airplanes, things like that. Take as much as possible into account. Even fantasy planes are things that you can take into account at times to see whether they are following some kind of logical structure over here. Now, what you're gonna see is when you're trying to get all this information together and you want to get like a strong mental picture of that, sometimes it's gonna be a little bit hard, especially because you're going to deal with so many different kind of elements and subjects. So possibility is that might stress you out a little bit, and so the thing that we're going to do now is we're going to make sure that we can order all those elements in such a way that it allows you to work with all these little things. So how are you going to approach that? Well, the thing that you need to do is you need to create a taxonomy of some sort. And creating a taxonomy is finding a taxonomy of dependencies. So what is actually the primary function? What does it do? What is it for? So you can think about a piloted jet plane. What is its primary function? Is it bombing? Is it flying? Is it carrying a pilot? Is it a power engine? So how do you represent something like that? And how is this represented into a shape? And when I was asking several people about what they think, and you might think about itself, then what we see is that some of the people are thinking about the wing, other ones are thinking about the body because it needs to be able to carry pilots, and some other ones are thinking about an engine because it's a jet plane, it's a powered vehicle. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult to make like a clear distinction for the primary function, especially when you look at all the different kind of airplanes that have ever been created. You can see them over here, in which we see that the examples over here are actually almost completely representing one of those elements. So on the top over here we see a flying body from NASA Research Center, and over here we see the very well-known B-2 stealth bomber. And over here, this is a little bit less known. I forgot about the name, but this is an airplane which is like more an engine alone rather than anything else. So it looks more like a rocket than an airplane. As you can see, what can you eliminate? Well, I decided to eliminate the power since an engine looks more like a rocket and goes a little bit further away from an airplane, especially if you look at the history of airplanes than the other ones. So you have like a pure wing, which could be something like a hang glider, or the body, which looks like the flight return system. But like I said, you can look it from a construction point of view, and over here you can see what, for example, is going to determine the position. So is the wing going to determine the position of the body? So if you have a wing, is the body being placed on the wing on different places, or is the wing being placed on different places on the body? And so if you think about that, you're gonna see that it is the body actually determining the positioning of the wing rather than the other way around. The body is almost in all cases centered on the wing, unless you have like a multiple body system on the wings. But even then, the point of gravity or the point of weight is always going to be centered. So the position of the wing is something that we can say is going to be determined by the body. So once you do that, you can start determining the order of all elements. So we have the body with the wings, and now if you have the position of both of them, then you can start thinking of where you should place, for example, the engines. So are the engines underneath the wings, are the engines connected to the body, etc. If you have the position of all of those elements, again you can start adding other things such as the tail wings and the air intake for the engines. Once all of those things are set, all the important places are taken, and you can decide where to put your gear and how to balance out the airplane a little bit more. You can start then determining where the cockpit should be and the weapons mountings after the cockpit, where to place all those things. So it's not going to obstruct the pilot and things like that. And the same approach you can take for all the sub-elements as well. And so if we talk about an engine, the engine can be broken up into all kinds of sub-elements, and you can do exactly the same process over there. So that's exactly what I'm expecting from you for the final assignment. So you're going to create a whole document in which you're going to take a subject to your own choice, and that you're going to analyze and create a strong and deep taxonomy for. Now, this is a small taxonomy. I'm expecting from you a much deeper worked out taxonomy. You will also be getting a document, an example document that you can use to look at and take as a reference. Okay, now let's go deeper into one of the details. Let's say, for example, the wings. And again, over here, if you're just talking about one of the sub-elements, again, you're going to determine which parts are the top level parts to look at and which are the more which are the parts that are derived from the things you did before. So one of the major elements you see about wings is their direction. Are they backway swing? Are they back-swinged or forward-swept? Are they back-swept wings or forward-swept wings? Are they just straight wings? Are those long wings or those short wings? Things like that you can already determine. And as you can see over here with those airplanes, you have like a lot of variation. And what you might notice as well, if you go a little bit deeper, is that depending on the direction of the wings and the positioning of those wings onto the body is also being influenced. So for example, if you look at the forward swept wings, we can see over here, they're mostly located completely at the back. And if you're going to research the reasons why they're doing those forward swept wings, you will understand as well why they've put so much backwards on the airplane. So once you have something like that, it's always good to test your ideas on paper. So make just very simple sketches just with lines and strokes, and that's the thing that you're going to focus on. So it's really about the primary shape. And the primary shape in this case, I haven't drawn it the same way over here, but the primary shapes are for the body is just one line, and for the wings it's also a broken line, so a line with either a straight line or a broken line like an arrow, as we can see over here, or a broken line with for the forward swept wings, things like that. So test that on paper, test also the location on paper for the subject that you're dealing with. Also, which is very important, is if you're going to research a lot of these things, you're going to see that there's going to be a lot of anomalies. So make sure that you check also those anomalies. You will find, if you go for the oblique flight research, you can also look that up on YouTube. You will see some examples of that as well. It's something very special. It's where an airplane is going to rotate its wing in order to be able to fly faster. So this is for flying in supersonic speeds, and this is going to help them doing that. And as you can see, it's already quite old. It's from the 1980s, in which they did this type of research. There are also some other kinds of prototypes in which they explain why, for example, wings such as this might be beneficial. So it's always very good to have like a good and deep understanding on what's going on over here. And so once you've done that, checking one of those elements, like the direction of the wings, you can continue, for example, with another sub-element, which is derived from that as well. Once you have the direction, you can also start determining the size of the wings, so how wide are they, how thick are they. So as you will see, fighter planes which need to be able to make very quick turns and dodge very quickly, they probably most of the time have like thicker and shorter wings, while as this U-2 airplane is made for flying in very high altitudes. And if you have like this very high altitude plane, you see you have these very thin, straight and long wings. Again, something like this, having this knowledge would help you to make like a very decent interface. With an interface you could, for example, determine at a very high level what kind of plane do you want to have. Do you want to have a plane which is able to dodge fight very quickly, or an airplane that needs to fly very high? Are those two able to be combined or not? If not, then you can make like just one slider in order to determine what type of airplane somebody wants. So that could already help to create like interesting random variations of that. Again, like I said, always make like sketches to check whether you have like things which are logical, which are following what you're trying to say over here. And you can continue doing that with other parts. Also take into account that you have to look at all kinds of directions of your geometry, of your shape. So if you look at the front view, how is the wing going to be positioned accordingly to the body, not only in the length but also on the height? Are the wings being able to be broken in all kinds of directions? Is that also determined by the position of the wings? And also, are the wings being able to be broken into subparts as well, and what are the reasons for doing that? And then you can start continuing with adding the engines, for example, as we can see over here, etc, etc. So over here, this is just like a very simple example. It shows you also that it starts off with using just very simple lines in which I can use like primitive attributes such as the length, and add some other information onto that, and add like point attributes that I can use for controlling all kinds of things. So the whole shape is being constructed from sub-elements which are being linked to each other using deductive reasoning as we did before. And now, even if you think, okay, this is not a really useful shape to use directly in a game, that's correct, but think again. Such a shape can be useful, for example, to give you some kind of inspiration, to give you at least some kind of a simple 3D model that you can use, for example, as a background for creating concept art, so you have immediately the good perspective, etc., that you can use. You can also use it just as base geometry that you can start off working from. So it has like already a lot of practical uses, even though it's like a very simple and small system. And so once you're finished with this approach that we've been dealing with, you're gonna see that everything is going to be much easier for you to deal with, and as you can see over here, all things will look bright and shiny. This example over here, which I'm going to show you, is the little airplane example. It's a very simple system that I've been setting up. It has not all the rules yet, but as you can see, it allows you to create like all kinds of variations, and those kind of variations are going to allow you to quickly find interesting airplanes. So I've connected it over here on the timeline. The whole system is just creating like all these random possibilities of airplanes with a few settings with like double tails over here, and I just stopped it over here as an example. And like with the concept artist, this comes up with like an initial sketch, and what you can say is, okay, I like this model for most of the part, but there are a few details that I want to adjust, like for example the direction of the tail wings, and so you can adjust those manually later on, and so you have like a plane which is an idea that was given to you by the procedure, and which you can create like some additional variations. And so here there are some other examples of airplanes being generated that way that you could use as an example. And so it's very easy to create like all kinds of extra variations from this one as well. Okay, so these examples now being shown, this should give you a little bit of an idea of how you should approach these kinds of things. Okay, in this part I'm going to talk about a book reference. Book references were very important to me. They gave me a lot of inspiration, so it might be interesting for you to have a look at those books as well if you can find them. this is a very popular quote that was being used by Isaac Newton, and I totally agree with that. If we have seen further, it's only by standing on the shoulder of giants. So what it means is that because of the tremendous and incredible work others have done before us, thanks to them, we're able to continue and create things which are more complicated. So one of the works that I'm really using is this book, Chernikov Fantasy in Construction. This is a book created in the 50s while constructivism was very popular in the Soviet Union. This guy made like a tremendous effort to analyze all shapes and geometry and make like a taxonomy in shapes. So what he's talking about is how you can define elements of a plane, for example over here, into linear elements, and he starts describing what all those basic visual elements are and how you can get to more and more complex elements of that. And so we're also going to talk about how forms and shapes can connect to each other, etc. Now you will see with the results he's doing over here, it looks already quite familiar to the random approaches, the Greeble approaches, or the exercises that you've been doing. He used these kinds of systems to create like a real-world architecture, to create like very dynamic and fluid buildings and effects. Also over here he's playing around with different kinds of forms and shapes to give the impression whether you're working with a chemical plant or something. So it's really worth looking at this book to give you a much deeper understanding on what it is. Another very important book, this book from Richtek. It's created by Wolfgang von Weersin. You've seen already a few things about, for example, the golden section, the golden rule, but this book goes much deeper into details on how we relate to form and shape and how you can construct all those elements to create like nice and good compositions. And then we have a book which is combining both of those books a little bit. Doesn't go on the same topics exactly, but still it's a very interesting book about architecture. It takes like all kinds of things into account, what is important from a psychological point of view, from persons sitting inside of a building, on how you perceive forms and shapes. This is a very easy to get book, so it's really worth buying this book. It will also help you even if you're not interested in becoming like a procedural artist, for level designers, for concept artists, even for character designers. Looking at this approach, it's very interesting to get like a bigger picture on how you should do things. Inspiration. There are some great inspiration sources that I want to share with you, and inspiration you can get from both modern art as well from science. The modern art is something which is often overlooked, especially with students. Avoid, and that's something I've said before, avoid looking too much at games only, because you're going to get like some mental incest, and that's something you really want to avoid. For example, this guy, Andy Goldsworthy, if you're interested into creating like bizarre worlds or magical worlds for fantasy games or something like this, this guy is creating like this landscape sculptures from all kinds of natural elements. There's many more works that this person has done, but he has like these great ideas using just natural elements to create like geometrical shapes in nature. And you can create like very weird shapes into some landscapes based on his ideas. And especially this one is a very nice example if you if you think of a fantasy game, you would be walking into a forest and you would see like stones with sticks all being placed around in these circles. It would give some kind of an eerie special effect, and not only that, it's also artistically very, very beautiful what's over here. Here we see, like in the cracks of the mud, we see like this pattern appearing because he made sure that some of these clay parts were not drying as quickly as others. So things like that are very interesting to have a look at. This is also a great example that I want to share with you. This is a CG artist, a Polish guy. He has gotten quite some success with his PhD work, and was research on art and also how he combined this with CG graphics. It's like he made some animations from that. You also can find this personal website over here, in which you see like some inspirational techniques what he does. In this case he uses Modo, but of course you can think of other things as well. So even though this might not seem directly related to this procedural approach, it's really interesting also to look within Houdini how you can do these things in a procedural way. Having control over all your polygons and how you do things, it's really going to help you to get, for example, effects as we can see over here. Then from the science point of view, there are some popular science works, as you can see over here in these documentaries. The Future is Wild. This is a research, or is some kind of a wild scientific documentary about how life probably could evolve and what the reasons would be for that. And over here we see another documentary which is also interesting, Life After People. So what would happen to the world and all kinds of elements if humans suddenly happen to disappear. And so again, it's interesting to look at the reasoning behind all those things and why things are happening the way they do. So what I'm talking about is more about the reasoning, which is interesting to look at, to create also a procedural system. This is also a very interesting article. I've added a link over here. It's how the color of plants could be on other planets and what the reasons might be. So again, because of knowing certain properties of life forms, of light and things like that, they can imagine what perhaps other plants on other planets might look like, or what kind of effects there might be. So make sure to read those things as well, and that's for sure going to help you. Next to this, I'm going to create like a small video also on analyzing a subject, which is talking about the analysis of a bridge. So also take a short look at that video and try to solve that video. It's something which goes again by step by asking you a set of questions, and you can try to add something like that yourself. Okay, that's it for this lecture.